Hello and welcome back to Savage Garden, an interview with the Vampire podcast, sampling immortality one morsel at a time. I am Kat, and I am once more joined on this journey into everlasting night by my companion Naomi, as we delve into more from Anne Rice's Immortal Universe. Today we are still not quite ready to dive into Series 2. We still need a little bit more time before we are emotionally robust enough to discuss that trial. But in the meantime, we are here with all of the news from this year's San Diego Comic-Con panel. We stayed up until a ridiculous time in the morning so that we could find out all of the news as it broke. And we are here with a roundup of everything that we learned for those of you who made the more sensible decision to stay in bed. We will get to the casting announcements that were made before we dive deep into the teaser footage, which was shared for those in attendance. But before that, I guess the big revelation is the Interview with the Vampire is getting a bit of a name change. So for Series 3, the show will no more be known as Interview with the Vampire. It's going to simply be The Vampire Lestat. Now, to me, that makes sense because that is the name of the book they're adapting. The first 2 seasons were the adaptation of Interview with the Vampire. Now we're moving on to The Vampire Lestat. So to me, that makes kind of logical sense. But Naomi, how are you feeling about the name change?
To me, it's a little bit, and yes, we were, so everyone knows this is truly tragic. We were up until about 2 a.m. after the Oasis gig, effectively refreshing the list of accounts that Jacob Anderson Daly had very kindly put up on Twitter so that we could kind of follow along with people live tweeting the panel. To me, it makes sense for it to be the Vampire Lestat, but also from a branding perspective, I'm still surprised they're not going with Interview with the Vampire Series 3, the Vampire Lestat. Because the problem is the show has only just started to get significant traction. And I mean, you can sort of see it if you go through their panels. Obviously, the first year, no one really, well, people cared, but they didn't really care. The second year was so much buzzier, so many more interviews, so many more outlets wanting them. This year, like incredible buzz, lots and lots. I think they did something like 23 interviews, an obscene amount of interviews, coverage. Outlets have very much realized that they equal coverage. Interview the Vampire, Sam and Jacob equal coverage. So, you had MTV taking multiple shots of them, TV Insider. TV Insider, I was going to sound awful, but I slightly discount them because they have Kelly Boyle has written a number of very, very lovely pieces, but it's almost like when you know someone is a fan of a series and it's fantastic that they're giving coverage, but you still need the other outlets that don't give a damn. If they give coverage, it's kind of somehow more weighty. So TV Insider did a number. I don't think I've seen their interview yet because Kelly wasn't there, but I've seen they did a number of very, really, really beautiful photographs that were wonderfully edited. MTV gave coverage. Everyone was basically fighting to interview these guys, which is incredible. And I do wonder if with the people that aren't really paying attention, whether reframing it as the Vampire Lestat just might, I don't know, lose some of that momentum. I don't know. I suspect that they're trialing it a bit and that while it will be called the Vampire Lestat, in terms of press coverage, they might still keep referring to it in that way. Because certainly all the press releases that we got referred to it in that way, didn't they? Interview with the Vampire Series 3, the Vampire Lestat. So we shall see. But yeah, it seemed like a really good, really buzzy event. Everyone seemed very relaxed. Definitely they are at their best when Sam and Jacob have each other to play off. Sam last year looked so nervous and kind of orphaned on his own. I think he can cope with things better that are centered on him when he's got Jacob right next to him taking the mix. So, as you do, it's always better when you've got a bestie with you. But yeah, it was a great It was a great event, great panel. And we didn't learn a huge amount because, of course, they've only been filming for 22 days of a 70-day shoot. Although we'll get into this when we talk about the footage. There's a lot in the footage, and they cannot possibly have shot all of these sequences yet. So it might just be tiny flashbacks that have been included in the footage. But there was a ton in it in terms of the plot line of Vampire Lestat. We know, thanks to Bobby, who is on another "We Don't Stop the Tape" podcast, that she asked Roland what the theme of the season was, and he said it was mortality. He's looking at the concept of mortality through Lestat's eyes. And we know that Lestat is obviously starting the series at the absolute top of the world. And obviously, it's going to deal with his grief and madness and probably drug-induced psychosis for everything that he has gone through, leading up to the awakening of Akasha. And I think because we always think, like, it is now impossible for me to see. I mean, I will get into the casting in a second, but whoever that's going to be playing Akasha, I can't get Aaliyah out of my head because that's the image that you have. And someone dressed up as her at San Diego Comic-Con looked astonishing. But that's the image. And of course, so we all have this view of Akasha as this incredibly beautiful bad bitch, but she's a terrible person in the books. I mean, she repeatedly uses rape as a systemic form of torture for men and women. Like, I mean, you know, yes, she arrives and is like, let's kill all the human men. And I mean, on any given day, that's like, I mean, was she wrong? Questionable, questionable. But she's not a good person. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how far Rowling goes into all the other truly, truly dreadful things that she does. None of which were obviously in the Aaliyah movie because, you know, you're not going to get into it in that kind of a project. But yes, it's building up to basically Akasha coming along and being like, Jesus Christ, Lestat, shush. You tiny little man. So Lestat is on his tour. He is slutting around, which is fine. I mean, the man's been single. He's, you know, spent 77 years in miserable isolation, mourning the death of his daughter, mourning the loss of his marriage, although, to be frank, that was very significantly his own fault. Wishing he was with Louis when Louis is with someone else. So he is allowed to slut around a little bit, find himself some humans, some drug blood, which again, I'm not going to be able to take seriously. This is the problem with what we do in the shadows. If Lestat is feeding off people to get high, all I'm going to be able to hear is drug blood all the time. We took the drug blood. There's a makeup brand called Radioactive Unicorn who did a What We Do in the Shadows makeup range. And I think I gave Caitlin the one that was called Drug Blood. It was like bright. It was like a luminous bright color. I think it was purple. Yeah, Lestat is clearly on the top of the world. Daniel Hart has written 16 to 20 songs, which is incredible. But they've made it clear that it's not a musical. If you are trying to catch up with the San Diego Comic-Con interviews and you don't have time, I would probably start with the Rotten Tomatoes one where they kind of discuss this because it's really funny where Sam is like, I don't just burst into song. And Jacob is like, you should just embrace it. But the Rotten Tomatoes interviewer had obviously gone to dinner with them and had a phenomenal rapport. So it's a really, really good interview. And I am petitioning for her to do any of the long form interviews that they do this time because she was great. Also good as the Collider interview, Joshua Horowitz, who is always good with MTV, and all of TV Insider's photographs were beautiful. We don't know much about Louis because Jacob Anderson has only done 4 days on set. We know that he's diversifying his investments, and I've been trying to think what would modern day Louis do? I sort of feel because he is quite snobby, and that's one of the things I've always loved about Louis as a character, that he is a snobby little bitch. And I feel like he would I don't know, maybe have some like really high-end restaurants or like really high-end like wellness clubs for human beings, you know what I mean? Or art collectives, that kind of a thing. I'm trying to think what else modern day Louis would want to invest in. Because obviously he still loves art, so I don't know if he would be continuing with kind of art and building museums or having retrospectives. He's going to want to keep a low profile, obviously. He's no longer in Dubai, thank God. No longer in that miserable, terrible little grotesque house. I mean, it was beautiful, but like the whole thing was a prison. Um, so he's no longer there. What do you see Louis investing in?
Do you know? I mean, maybe he's gone into interior decorating, maybe he's, making reading trees for everybody.
The whole tree with the whole Zen garden. I'm telling you, he would be like the world's most sought after interior designer if he did that, though. But he would have to be like super elusive. You could only like deal with him via email or something because he's not going to want to be wandering around with his meeting humans. Gentrified Louis is going to have, I don't know, his own vineyards or something like that. I feel like he's a classy babe, is Louis, far more so than Lestat. He's going to have like classy interests, wine. Obviously, you can't drink it, but vineyards, gentlemen's clubs, and by which I don't mean strip joints, although that would be funny too. I feel like he's going to have really posh, like Soho House, vampire Soho House. Or maybe he's not doing any of this for humans. Maybe he's literally doing it for the vampire world. We see in the teaser a glimpse of a vampire lawyer. So maybe Louis has decided to go out there and, even though he's kind of do things for the vampires. We've got the vampire doctor as well with Dr. Farid. So yeah, that would be intriguing. But I can't wait to find out what he's doing. Daniel is, well, the book's a huge hit, so he's got lots and lots of money, but he's also furious with Armand. And we've heard, obviously, that lovely Assad Zaman is returning, as is Delaney Hales, although they were very coy about who she was playing. She's got to be Ghost Claudia, surely.
I mean, you'd think so, because it'd be really weird if there was another character who looked exactly like Claudia. Or, something silly like Claudia had a long lost sister, twin sister that she didn't know about, who also happened to be turned into a vampire maybe a couple of years later, so they can kind of account for Delaney appearing a little bit older. But that long lost twin sibling storyline doesn't really feel like something that this show, the Interview with the Vampire, would do. Neighbours, oh my god, yes. I mean, it's done it. Doppelgangers does it so much, but I don't think the Interview would do that. So it has to be that Claudia is. It has to be that Claudia's going to be this version of Dreamstat. She's either going to be haunting Lestat, and that is why he turns to the drug blood, or she is going to be what he hallucinates when he takes the drug blood. I don't really see any other way that they could utilize Delaney other than having her play Claudia. I feel that she's Claudia, but through Lestat's eyes.
I think the only other way that I could see it work is if they start the series, which would be a little bit unfair on the other person, if they start the series with one actor playing one role, even, and I mean, again, as like, say, Christine, who is like the manager, or maybe one of the band, and then as he slowly starts to completely and totally lose it, Delaney Hales is playing the character. So he's seeing Claudia wherever he goes. But I mean, I agree with you. To me, Ghost Claudia, once he's off his tits on drugs, seems to be the most obvious solution. Let's talk about casting. So they've cast Akasha, but we didn't find out who because the ink wasn't dry yet. So we have to talk about the most exciting casting, which is Gabrielle, who, for some truly bizarre reason, they appear to have renamed Gabriella. even though the name is not Gabrielle, it is Gabrielle de Liancourt. But Jennifer Ellie, and I mean, she is a phenomenal, phenomenal actor. Roland tends to favor theatre actors, and I think most people know her from the 1990s version of Pride and Prejudice, which she won a BAFTA award for. It was a BAFTA TV award for Best Actress. She is a double Tony Award winner for two Tom Stoppard plays, The Real Thing and The Coast of Utopia. Um, she was in the Dead Ringers TV series, which has to be my next watch. I haven't watched it yet. God, do I love her. But I saw her on IMDb. She's in 5 episodes.
I have seen Dead Ringers. I can't place who she is within it. It was a couple of years ago now, I think, that I watched it. But it's a very good series. And I think she is one of those actors that has that chameleon quality. So whilst I've seen her in several things, I don't necessarily point at her and go, "Oh, it's her," because she is such a good actress and she always has this way of, just completely being the character that she's playing.
Yeah, as you said, she's an absolute chameleon. She's incredible. And we need to talk about our favorite film that she is in, which is St. Maud.
Mm, she's really good. That is where I do remember her from.
Yeah, so St. Maud is, if anyone hasn't seen it, it is a horror film about a woman that is dying, which is Jennifer L., who brings in kind of a companion to look after her in her last days. And Maud is very religious and has sort of, during the course of her time with Jennifer's character, kind of submits even more to religious mania. And she doesn't like the fact that this dying woman is living her life in a way that she considers to be, I suppose, immoral, because she's out there having parties and getting drunk and drugged and paying women to sleep with her. Because why wouldn't you? She's dying, so she wants to ensure that she lives the best life that she possibly can with the time that she has left. It's it's a really interesting film. It's a really interesting character study of these two women. She is kind of wonderfully unlikable and doesn't give a shit in the performance, which I can see coming through with Gabrielle as well. It's such a good performance. She is so, so, so good in it. She really is. And yeah, I am really excited to see what she's going to do with the role of Gabrielle.
And she's age appropriate. Something that we have discussed on the podcast before is our concerns that they were maybe going to cast a younger actress, maybe somebody in their 40s. But, Jennifer is in her mid to late 50s, I believe, which, considering Sam Reed's age and the time period in which Lestat's backstory would be set, makes her, pretty. I think the numbers line up that she could realistically be Lestat's mother.
Yeah, she's 55, so yeah, it absolutely works out because you would, I mean, I love, God bless the fans, but so many fan casts were listing women that were younger than me, and I was like, my friends, I could not have given birth to Sam Reed unless something very, very, very wrong had happened. Very
Mm.
wrong, like requiring medical intervention and everything else. Like, I could not have given birth to this man. So when you are listing actresses who are like 40, this is, no one was giving birth to him when they were like 3. This is not how this works. So yeah, she is age appropriate. She does look like him. We're gonna have to talk about her look when we come to the footage because yeah, but yeah, she's a fantastic choice. Then for Marius, we have Christopher Heyerdahl, who seems to be a, hey, it's that guy. Because when I
Yeah.
looked him up, he's been in everything. So I haven't seen the Twilight films, but I believe he was in Twilight.
Yes, he was one of the Volturi who come in the second book and film, kind of like the vampire royalty, and you have to kind of pass through them. Like they're kind of like the royalty and also like the council. So there's this big hoo-ha where Bella has a baby. One of the rules in that world is you can't have children. I know him from 3-episode arc on Supernatural where he played Demon Alistair. I mean, that's how impactful his performance was. I remember him out of, what, 150 odd episodes of Supernatural. I'm like, yeah, that guy that was in 3 episodes.
I sort of vaguely remember Alistair. I mean, his IMDb has basically had him in one episode of everything. I mean, his most recent work, he was in multiple episodes of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. He was in Under the Banner of Heaven with Andrew Garfield. He was in Peacemaker, but again, I don't remember him in Peacemaker, but he's in 4 episodes of it. He
Yeah.
appears to have been in 27 episodes of a Van Helsing TV series. I didn't even know there was a Van Helsing TV series. So he's been in that, and he's been in True Blood, and now he's going to be in The Vampire Lestat. This man was clearly born to be a vampire.
Someone's a fang banger.
Yeah, I mean, he looks it. He looks the part. When you look at him, you're like, yes, this is very clearly an ancient vampire. This is not a human being. So, yeah, I can totally see it. Then the next piece of casting, which, to be fair, this is a problem with nowadays with entertainment journalism, is that the vast majority of info we get is actually from the update accounts rather than entertainment journalists who give us, a little bit of time to go and sort of research things. So the next piece of casting is Damien Atkins as Magnus. And when he was announced, and Roland did the completely insane thing of just holding up his phone and IMDb snapshots from IMDb and like showing it to the audience. Damien Atkins' headshot is rather old, I think.
Yes.
So we were both sat there going, why have they cast this twink as Magnus? This is completely and utterly insane. He looks 12. But and he's clearly a theatre actor because he's not done his IMDb is a bit light. But if you find him on Instagram where he is at Atkins_Damien with an E, then it makes sense because he's clearly a theatre actor. He's very involved with the Shaw Festival in Toronto, and he looks very different from the headshot. That headshot, I'm saying, is maybe 15 to 20 years out of date. He keeps playing Sherlock Holmes, and you can kind of see it. He's very tall, very angular, very thin, graying in a distinguished way. I mean, I don't know if they're going to give him prosthetics to play Magnus because Magnus is meant to be like truly grim, or whether we're going to go with a slightly sexy Magnus, which is kind of wrong in a way. But I don't know how he's going to play it. But it made more sense than the headshot because we were very confused for an hour or so as to what on earth that casting was.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the announcement and immediately kind of going to the internet and searching for them because it wasn't a name that I recognized. And then I was certain that the person I was looking at on IMDb was the wrong person and that they just didn't have an IMDb page or I was spelling their name wrong or something because, yeah, he looked like a really young brunette Rob Beckett, and I kind of had like a brain break because it's like I don't think I'm going to be able to take this character who is supposed to be quite menacing. I don't think I'm going to be able to take him seriously at all. And I just thought, how have they done so well at casting everybody? And now they've somehow ended up with this dude. But then, I slept on it and I woke up the next morning and I did some more digging and thankfully uncovered a much more recent photograph. And yeah, that casting makes sense. I mean, it's something that a lot of actors do, particularly in IMDb, wherein they will keep a picture from years ago. I remember an actor, or there's a few actors, I should say, who were in their 70s and their IMDb profile picture is still in their 20s. And that's going to be really hard if you're casting. So you look through someone's IMDb and you go, oh, yeah, cool. They've got exactly the look that we need for our like 25-year-old character. Let's get them in. Let's get them on a Zoom call. And then they're faced with somebody who is far more advanced than 20. I just, can we just normalize updating our IMDb profiles, people?
Well, I suppose the thing is, if he's consistently working in theatre and has built a reputation up in there, he's probably just going to be cast from the basis of his reputation. He doesn't really need the headshot. I mean, I could the thing that was kind of the giveaway was that the trades were referencing him as being in Slings and Arrows, and Slings and Arrows was years ago. very good Canadian show about an amateur dramatic company, which is very, very funny. I will not be able to remember the name of it now, but the lead actor in it is from that Canadian show about the Mountie who had the dog. Yeah, no.
Due south.
Yes, due south. So Slings and Arrows was years ago. So when they said that that was the sort of the thing he was known for, that showed that film and TV is not a priority for him, and he's clearly working really, really consistently in Toronto in theatre. Yeah, the headshot thing is definitely like conventions will often announce people with a headshot, and they'll be sat behind a massive blown up version of this headshot and look nothing like it. But I am glad that when we started seeing pictures, you're like, okay, I see the vision. Then Christine, who is Lestat's manager, is being played by somebody called Janine Sorales. Again, she appears to be primarily a theatre actor. She's got 2 Drama Desk Awards, 2 Drama League Awards, and a Lucille Lortel Award, which is all very impressive. She was the detective in one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life. Sorry, Janine, this is not on you, my angel. This is on the film in general. It's called The Woman in the Window. Have you seen that? The Amy Adams.
No, I have not. No.
It's so bad. So the most interesting thing about The Woman in the Window is not the film, which is terrible. It's the backstory of the novelist, which there was this huge sort of investigative article about a long time ago. Basically, he was a compulsive liar. He kept pretending that he had cancer and brain cancer and all of this, and was just an absolute, yeah, I mean, if there is an investigative article out there, which you should definitely go find and read, it's one of these things of just somebody who's an absolute liar and yet actually somehow managed to get this massive, massive multi-million dollar sort of writing contract to write this movie, which for some bizarre reason Amy Adams chose to appear in. It's sort of like a Rear Window hysterical woman thinks something bad has happened, but nobody believes her. It's just terrible. I cannot stress enough how terrible it is, and I think that Janine plays the detective in it, but it is awful. She's also in the US version of Utopia, which I haven't seen, and she was inside Llewellyn Davis, in Inside Llewellyn Davis with Oscar Isaacs, which is a very cool thing to have been in. And then we have Baby Jenks. I haven't read Queen of the Damned yet, I must confess. So I believe Baby Jenks and the Fang Gang is characters from Queen of the Damned. I think basically she's going to be like a Lestat vampire groupie. And she's played by Ella Ballantyne. I think she is the blonde in the trailer that has all the drugs in her mouth. And the thing I was surprised at was that they didn't name any of Lestat's band. I was hoping we would get Gabrielle casting, but I thought all we were going to get was the band casting. And I'm surprised that they didn't name Noah Reid as Larry, because Noah has quite a fan base of his own from Schitt's Creek, and he's a recording artist in his own right. So I am surprised that they didn't choose to do that. But that was all the casting we got. And then, because I am insane and I did this and wrote this out and scanned it and sent it to Kat, because, I am here for you people. The footage. So they've only released about 3 minutes. And when I say released, I don't mean released. I mean that they put it on the screen and everybody recorded it, as is their service. We also must thank the incredible people that recorded the panel. Like, very kind of you to have done that and put it up. That was very thoughtful, because obviously you can't live stream. I still don't really know why we don't live stream Comic-Con panels, because you could always just ask them not to. You know what I mean? You could always just turn it off. But we have to thank, I just wanted to find her name correctly, Teeny Tiny 2, who very kindly recorded and upped the panel for us afterwards, which was much appreciated. But yeah, obviously they haven't AMC haven't released the footage. They've released a behind the scenes video of Sam Reed looking phenomenal in different rock star outfits, including the Dracula cape, which is directly from the graphic novel, and I love that they've managed to pull it off. We have a new costume designer this year. It's not Carol Cutzel anymore.
Oh.
It is Lex Wood. Um, I love that Sam said at one point he was going through his costume for the day, and it was just a scarf. And he was like, anything else? And we know that we're getting from the Rotten Tomatoes interview, which is really funny. We know we're getting an orgy in the first episode because why would we not? So our footage starts, and they're not going to release this, I don't think, because I don't think they want to be wedded to any of the shots. Because I suppose the curse of Comic Con is that you have to show something, because
Yeah.
otherwise your audience will be furious. But then your audience is going to frame by frame every single thing you do produce and rip it to shreds. So I feel for any creative putting anything up at SDCC, unless it's finished, which obviously the Vampire Stat is a very long way from being finished. But we start with Daniel and Louis kind of as a sort of a bookend to last series, discussing the book. And Daniel asks Louis if he likes it, and Louis says he didn't like him in it because he was passive, selfish, a liar, and not just a liar to myself kind of liar, but a fucking liar. Which, I don't know, I found that kind of interesting. I mean, he's passive, certainly. The whole point of Louis in series 2 is that he's kind of he's living this very beige life, isn't he? This dull, beige, protected
Yeah.
life in Dubai, and obviously settling in a country with horrific human rights abuses and living amongst the very, very hoi polloi there in effectively his own little gated community, his own little prison, which he didn't realize until the very end, but with Ormond kind of blanketed, safe, but no passion. Love, certainly, but maybe a different kind of love. So he was definitely passive. I'm not sure I'd agree he was selfish. Louis is very, I mean, obviously there was all those years where he did make Lestat's life as miserable as humanly possible, but he was really sick. I mean, he had an eating disorder, he was depressed, Claudia was gone. I'm not sure that we can call somebody who was that ill and was maybe dealing with, vampire bipolar. I think I'd struggle to call him selfish in series 1. And in series 2, I think the whole of series 2 is about the fact that when we find people that we think are our kin, we kind of sometimes let, you know, our enjoyment about having people that we think we love or that think see us kind of blind us a little bit and make us vulnerable. And that certainly happens with Claudia. I mean, Claudia is so happy to have beaten Lestat, and she's like, I'm on top of the world, I'm invincible, I'm the cleverest thing that ever was. And then, I mean, I will be intrigued to see if they must revisit Paris in the trial. But for me, I think the Coven clocked him from day one. I've never thought any differently. I think the Coven clocked them from the second they walked through into the Théâtre de Vampire. And so, they didn't realize that. And Louis, we've spoken before that Louis is just fucking terrible at office politics. He has no idea how to play with the Coven, no idea how to deal with Santiago or with Armand or with any of the power play dynamics, which always surprised me as someone whose background is a pimp. But he didn't seem, and particularly a pimp that had to operate in profoundly white society, as a black man, the degree of finessing, I would have thought that Louis in series 1, when he's on it, is like the consummate politician. But in series 2, I think he just relaxes a bit because he feels like he's having like a fun summer holiday meeting other vampires. And all that politician skill just seems to go out the window. But I don't think I would really struggle to call Louis selfish.
Yeah, unless he's viewing himself as selfish because once he was with Armand, kind of Claudia was kind of to the side and forgotten about. It's that case of, as sometimes happens where, a parent pushes a new lover ahead of their child, and then maybe he's just feeling like, looking back, he's like, well, that was quite selfish to put my own needs above my daughter's. That's kind of the only way that I can maybe legitimize that.
I mean, I think that at that point, because at that point, wasn't Claudia like in her 40s? I think they were just fucking sick to the back teeth of each other. You can love someone to death and not want to spend much time with them. And I think at that point, Louis is like, look, I've killed my husband to ensure you're safe. You're not happy anywhere. You weren't happy in New Orleans. You weren't happy when we were wandering around Romania. You joined the coven. You've got a job on stage. You're not happy now. Obviously, she's not happy because they've given her a purposefully humiliating role. You're just not happy. And yes, Louis was stupid as hell to be like, oh no, this man I've just met, he doesn't sound like someone who would threaten you. It's like, Louis, bro, like your brain is just leaking out. Stop thinking with your dick. But yeah, I suppose that can be the only thing I can think of that he feels. It can only relate to Claudia and Armand because she does warn him and he ignores her. But then Claudia doesn't see a lot of the warning signals from the coven because she's allowed herself to be vulnerable. It's really sad. I find the two of them trying and failing so badly to navigate the politics of the Paris coven deeply, deeply sad because all they wanted was a bit of kinship, and these people were just monsters. So, but yeah, I struggle with Selfish Liar. Yeah, kind of bits, little bits. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to say that Louis' version of things was wrong, but I suppose the only things he he made things look a little better for himself in terms of the turning scene of Claudia and the fight scene where he sort of leaves out the fact that he was beating the hell out of Lestat. That's all right, because we do that. We always embellish things to make ourselves look the hero. And then I did laugh that this is a 3-minute piece of footage. We're barely 10 seconds into this. And Roland just lobs a grenade in to the discourse. Like, what are you doing? With Daniel just ignoring everything Louis says and laughing and saying he didn't like the scene of him and Claudia on the train. And it cuts to the book saying, annotated in massive letters, this never fucking happened. And we're like, what? Now, we went really heavily into this scene when we talked about the episode. We both agreed it's a scene we hate. It's the worst, apart from dropping Louis, it's the worst thing that Lestat does. It's completely unforgivable. He threatens Claudia with her own rapist. It's a really grim, really ghoulish, really, really, really over the top scene. Completely out of character for Anne Rice's creation. I suspect she'd have been furious about that sequence. Arguably out of character for this version of Lestat, but we did say at this point he's just completely lost it. But now I was like, well, where did Daniel get that from? Was that in Claudia's diary? It must have been. So now it's like, I don't particularly want to jump to the notion that Claudia was lying in her diaries, although they've set a precedent for that because they've said in her diary she says she could never dream. And then Louis in that extraordinary scene in the first episode of series 2, which, I mean, if people weren't so biased against genre, Jacob Anderson would be picking up every award for when he cries and realizes that Claudia could dream. The only thing I can think of, if we're going to have it actually be that that scene didn't happen and not, again, Lestat trying to make himself feel better by claiming it didn't happen, is this is their version of what happens in the books, which is that Claudia is sick to death of these insane gay men that she's been stuck with and wants to go out on her own and doesn't want to be with either of them. So she encourages Louis to kill Lestat because she knows she will never get Lestat to kill Louis. And in the books, that's quite cold. And I can't see them doing that here because the Louis Claudia relationship, for all its ups and downs, is a really beautiful thing. But I suppose she knows they're reading her diaries. I guess if Louis was reading her diaries at the time, if she could have written this as a way of super encouraging Louis to off Lestat. I mean, he still dragged her back from the train, so Lestat's not winning any Father of the Year awards here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing as well is that she's still quite young. Yeah, I think when the train happened, she was maybe in her 20s. And, we've discussed before that, Claudia being turned when she was means that she is just permanently kind of full of all those teenage hormones, and she has the temper to match. So there's the thing about diaries and journals is that they're kind of supposed to be like your private safe space where you can just like vent and just get everything out. She's kind of vomited all of this rage onto the page, which potentially didn't happen verbatim, but from her perspective, that is the way that she has interpreted it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's I think a really good explanation because her coming back and just being like "Rah!" and then just kind of raging in her diary about her because he still drags her off the train. He still doesn't let her go, which is the key thing. He knows Louis is suicidal at that point. He does not let Claudia leave. So no matter how he achieves it, he still blocks her freedom and drags her back with him. So by any token, he's horrendous and she's obviously devastated. So yeah, it could have been embellished because it is over the top. And Sam Reed did make a couple of comments about, oh, I could see which scenes weren't real. And I'm not sure what other ones that could really refer to, but that one is purposefully, I think, wildly out of tune with the tone of a lot of the rest of it. So yeah, I'll be intrigued to see his view of that. Then sort of have quick flashes, the stat drug to hell and the drug blood, which seems to be doing something to his veins. So I thought they were scars that were on his body, but I think it's all the drugs he's pumping himself with. Um, we do not talk about people's bodies because who cares? But Jesus Christ, Sam Reed, the degree of Pilates and everything else that must be going on, and no food and probably no water to be able to be wandering around completely shirtless all the time. So much stress. I can do it. I like, is it, yeah, I mean, Dan Stevens talks about the role in The Guest where he couldn't drink for like 24 hours so that he looked all hyped up. Gross. They dehydrate themselves. I'm not sure that Sam can do that because Lestat cries so much. If he dehydrates himself, I think he's going to end up in hospital. Um, so we have Daniel with a very drugged Lestat, which I think they just put in there in the trailer for suggestive purposes, which I appreciate their service. And then we start to have clips of Lestat's backstories. We've seen like tiny baby Lestat. We see human Stat, as we shall call him, with his human eyes, pulling a gun on somebody, maybe his brothers. Then we have Lestat and someone who I think is not Louis, unfortunately, wandering into a hotel, and he's wearing the thing with the wonderful coat with the shoulder pads, pulling a coffin behind him. Lestat carrying a groupie with fan marks. We see a bit of a shot of the tour bus, and then the concert footage. And of course, playing underneath that, we have a clip of another song. This is the second song that we've heard, and again, very 1970s, very Bowie. And then we get our first shot of Gabrielle in the crowd rolling her eyes. And this is where we have to talk about the wig.
Yeah, I mean, one can only hope that it's rushed footage that has been put in, and that there would be more work finessing it in post, because it's a very long, very wide, almost Legolas type hair.
It is, it looks like, to be blunt, Timu lace front Targaryen wig. And
Yeah.
the crazy thing is Jennifer L has strawberry blonde hair. You put her next to Sam Reed, she looks the same. All you needed to do was blonde it up a bit. What I am hoping is that the wig is a wig in universe. Now, the whole point of Gabrielle, and Roland very noticeably dodged this question, by the way, is that Lestat makes her and is like, yay, mummy is going to be with me forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But of course, mummy's like, you know what? I never wanted to be a wife. I never wanted to be a mother. I'm immortal now. Fuck it. I'm going to go have adventures. And as part of that, she cuts all her hair off. Because there's a really iconic scene where she's really upset when the next day when it's grown back, and Lestat says, "I will cut it for you every day if I have to." But the whole point is that Gabrielle kind of takes off kind of the shackles of femininity because she kind of sees it as part of this patriarchal society and this life she was forced to lead. Chops all her hair off and goes off and has, adventures, and only comes back when like dire times of need. Like in the book, she shows up to rescue, I think she shows up to rescue the stat from the concert. But she kind of shows up to be like, what are you whining about? I'm here now. It's fine. Stop complaining. But the whole point is that she kind of is really, from a gender perspective, she kind of refuses to settle into the role that she was as the Marquesa. And this is not how I had envisaged Gabrielle. This is very power femme Gabrielle, with the wig and the kind of almost like 1980s power suits. And somebody asked, the Entertainment Weekly interview wasn't great. Sorry, Entertainment Weekly. I feel like we need to petition people to stop handing random tweets to actors to read out, because she just picked tweets for actors to read out, and it was like Sam Reed at one point just said, what do you want me to say about this? And the one she handed to Roland was about Gabrielle and all her gender fuckery, and he kind of dodged it and just said she's coming in like an asteroid. But yeah, I was expecting someone much more androgynous. I was expecting like Tilda Swinton vibes, or I mean the coloring is completely wrong, but the vision in my head was like Rachel Weisz with a pixie cut and oversized men's clothes, men's suits. Not femme Gabrielle with Daenerys Targaryen wig. So we'll have to see. As I said, you cannot judge these things, but yikes. No. So I'm really hoping this is a wig that she then ditches, or she kind of changes up her look throughout the series, because obviously most of this can only be them filming episode 1. They can't have gone far for all this footage. But yeah, that was it was a bit like, really? But I did love that she's in the crowd just rolling her eyes at her idiot son on stage. And then we cut to human Gabrielle touching human Lestat in what can only really be classified as a wildly inappropriate way. And obviously we're going to get into a lot more about Lestat's sexuality and why he is how he is, because, this poor guy, he spent a life being beaten by his father, beaten by his brothers, dragged away from an education, dragged away from his attempt to escape and go be with a theatre troupe, constantly beaten. In the books, it's really clear that Mummy has wildly inappropriate feelings, and obviously they are moving that into just outright sexual abuse. Magnus, well, it's implied in the books that he rapes him. I don't know if we're going to go, I would imagine they probably are going to just make that more literal here. So this poor guy, and then of course you've got Armand being like, oh no, I met this super hypersexualized siren who just, overpowered poor little 500-year-old me. I was powerless to accept his charms. Bro, no. What fan fiction are we trying to sell here? You were so much more powerful and so much older than Lestat. This notion that he was this like cute little siren who wooed you and then dumped you and broke your heart. I'm not buying any of this fanfic. Not a word of it. yeah, I mean, Lestat has been taught that his value, his worth, is his looks and his body. And I suppose being a rock star is kind of the absolute, you know, apex of that. And that's why when Louis became depressed when Claudia left, you know, when Louis didn't want to have sex with him, that was him rejecting all of him, because if he's not having sex, then what's his worth? What value does he have? So I feel like as glitzy and as pretty as the Vampire Lestat is going to be, I have a feeling that a lot of it is going to be terribly sad. We get signs of Lestat cloud surfing, then him on more pulling guns on horseback, because we have to do the wolf killer scene. I will be sad if there's no snow, but I appreciate that AMC has a very low budget. Teeny budget. Probably can't. Maybe it's gonna like do CGI snow. We see a quick shot of Lestat's dad, the Marquis. A very brief shot of super angry vampires in the crowd. That's like a blink and you'll miss it, but you just sort of see them there glowering while he's on stage. A super quick shot of human Lestat being beaten, which is super sad, and an upset Gabrielle. And Daniel kind of watching Lestat on stage. And then we get the big Louis Lestat scene with the lawyers. And I've been entertaining myself trying to work out what this is. I like the idea that this is like a vampire intervention. That the vampire, whatever vampire council there is, has been like, can we just get these two morons in a room and agree that we're not going to do any more books, any more documentaries, that we're going to just like sort it out. It would have been much funnier if it had been therapy. But I like the way that I like the suggestion that it's an intervention. It can't be a divorce. They were never married. Lestat doesn't have any claim on Louis's assets, and Lestat's rich himself. So I have to assume that Lestat is suing the publisher of Daniel's book, and that this is them talking it out. But it is hilarious because you've got Lestat just absolutely crashing the fuck out about Armand, like going back and saying, who directed the play, and then went home and was canoodling with one of his victims. What I love, though, is that Louis has obviously worked on himself a great deal since we've seen him last. He's very calm. He's obviously at a place where he can talk about Armand, because he literally says, we can talk about Armand Lestat if that would help you. Like very therapy speak. But like, this is a man who is calm, who is centered, who can deal with his completely insane ex, and has also dealt with what, Armand has done and the impact that that has had on his life. So I was like, oh, Louis, you're like in a self-actualized. You're there, you've reached peace. I'm hoping you're doing like incredible business activities. You're like, oh, I was very pleased for Louis in that moment, because he was like looking at Lestat so fondly, but just being very chill. And I get it. I can understand why Lestat's got like a whole ton of built up resentment. Yes, he was a fucking terrible husband and had no idea how to raise Claudia, and was physically abusive in a horrific way. So he doesn't get any brownie points. He was like the worst husband in the world. But Armand did kill his daughter. And then he had to grieve his daughter alone for 77 years while watching the man he loves live the life he wanted to live with him, with the person that killed their daughter. So you can understand that Lestat's got like a lot of rage built up. It's not appropriate for him to be yelling at Louis, but I get why he's like super jealous of Louis and Armand's relationship. And we get the very thinly veiled, should we call it big spoon, little spoon talk about driving over the Golden Gate Bridge. But yeah, I just love that Louis is just like this epitome of calm, and not forced calm, which he kind of was. Like in series 2, it's kind of a forced calm, but now I feel like Louis is where he's meant to be. He's very calm. He can deal with Lestat, and he's looking at him with nothing but fondness while Lestat is losing it. The look of jealousy when Louis pats his lawyer's arm, hilarious. Bless him.
I really liked the line where Lestat's like, I mean, Santiago, I could understand, Santiago, he had allure, he had charisma, but Armand, like, just like of all of the Theatre de Vampires, he's picked Armand, like, Beigey McBeige. It just tickled me that, he's so anti Armand. He's just like, you'd have slept with anybody else in the world, but it's not him. Not him. So yeah, there's obviously still a lot of jealousy towards Armand. And yeah, in series two, Louis was very, as you say, sort of like forced calm. And I kind of feel that that's now that he's kind of more like Zen Louis, has to do with the fact that he's at peace now. Like Armand has been revealed, and it's kind of like he always knew that something wasn't right, but he wasn't 100% sure if that was right. And it took him bringing in old Columbo Daniel to finally kind of get to the bottom of it and get that confirmation. And then once there's been that revelation, he's instantly calm. It's like when you meet somebody and they give off some sort of like vibe to you, and you kind of get the impression that like maybe they don't like you, but you're not entirely sure, like they haven't done anything in particular that outright makes you certain of that, but there's just oddities. And so you don't quite know how to go, and you're kind of like driving yourself mad, being like, they don't like me, but why don't they like me, and what have I done? I haven't done anything, like what? And then you get to a point where something happens, and then suddenly it is revealed of like, oh no, you're being an absolute idiot. Love you, babe. Or no, this person genuinely hates me. And just like once you know where you stand in a situation, it's so much easier to just take that step back and be like, cool, okay. Well, I know what I'm dealing with now. And I think that's very much what happened to Louis in series two. Like, he's always known that Armand is keeping something back, and he's basically like fixated on it and driven himself to the point of near madness trying to figure it out. But then by the end of season two, he has found his peace, he's found his freedom. He's realized that he's not gaslighting himself by like overanalyzing every little microscopic thing within the relationship. There was something fundamentally wrong. He was right. And so clarity by Armand. Now let's go and deal with the old ex-husband.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've always said I hate any suggestion that Daniel uncovered anything that Louis didn't already know. Louis knew all of it in his heart of hearts, I think, because that's what caused the drug addiction. That's what caused the fact he cheated on Armand so many times. The suicide attempt. In his heart, he always knows that Armand isn't right. He's just clung to what's left. He lost his daughter. He thinks his ex-husband has effectively killed his daughter. I mean, of course, Lestat saw Claudia burn to death in front of his eyes. Louis didn't see it. Louis didn't see her birth and he didn't see her death. But he's clung to the person that is there offering safety and security and a calm place to grieve. And so, of course, it was contentedly with Armand for all those years. But in his heart, he's like, no, this is wrong. So all he does is he brings across the investigative journalist to kind of as basically like a second check, really, just to kind of prove for his own peace of mind, either actually no, there's nothing wrong with Armand, and all of these feelings that I've been harboring for years are incorrect, or yeah, I was right, and he knows he was right. I have never felt, because I'm a lawyer myself, I've never felt more seen in my life than when Lestat's lawyer goes, shall we circle back to the particulars? I've never sat in so many meetings where I've been like, anyway, so if we could get back to the matter at hand, yeah, I mean, I don't have to deal with family or anything like that or disputes, thank God. But yeah, That was a very seen moment when she's just sat there like, Jesus Christ, how the fuck? Because you know she must be from the Rogier, the French law firm that Lestat has on retainer. And they must all know, even if they don't mention it, that it's not a descendant, it's the same guy. But obviously they don't want to. I mean, Louis got a vampire lawyer. She didn't look like a vampire. They must know that, you know, their employer has the potential to kill them. So she's probably just like, I'm just gonna sit here while he crashes the fuck out during this meeting, and then we'll bring it back to where we need to go. But yeah, I was like very in that moment. We see Lestat signing autographs. We got a very quick glimpse of Raglan James and Real Rashid. Baby Jenks with her mouth full of drugs. Our very first clear shot of Noah Reed. Lestat peeing blood. I thought that vampires didn't pee. I'd be pretty pissed off if I became a vampire and had to pee and poop all the time.
I mean, I guess peeing I could understand because blood's liquid. So, like,
Yeah,
are they pooping? And if they are pooping, it can't be pleasant because there's nothing solid going in.
yeah. I'm sort of assuming that he's just like, I don't know, taken so much blood that maybe he needs to pee. I don't know. Very confusing. We get a very quick shot of Joseph Potter as Nicky. Lestat, I think it's Lestat. It's quite hard to tell. Contemplating his life while looking at a skyline wall. It could be a member of the band, but I suspect it's a lover, is asleep in the background. We get back shot of Lestat and Gabrielle in phenomenal coats. Then what I think is like a Daft Punk style shot, which I think is Vampire Sam DJing and living his best life. Now, Sam may have written the play, which we have to side-eye him for, but I like that he's just like, I'm going to continue living and be a DJ in a helmet and live my best life. Good for you,
Yeah.
Sam. Good for you. We see Daniel biting someone, and then an absolutely drugged out of his fucking gourd Lestat hallucinating Louis in his wedding outfit in the crowd. Oh, these boys are hopeless. They're just constantly hallucinating the other one. If they could actually have a conversation, I mean, I don't think that either one of them should be with each other at this point in time. Like Lestat's grieved alone. He needs a lot more time and a lot more work on himself and his feelings and everything else, which of course he can't do because he's, you know, just someone who crashes out constantly. But no, I mean, Louis definitely just needs to be living his best life on his own, doing his projects, having a lovely time and not having to worry about an insane boyfriend. And equally, Lestat is, you know, you got to love yourself before you can be with someone else. Lestat needs to deal with, you know, everything that's happened to him, all the terrible abuse, watching his daughter die. He needs to deal with all of that before he can even remotely inflict all that chaos on Louis. But the fact that he is hallucinating Louis is just like, oh, my poor sweet angel. You see human Lestat in very fancy shades. Then what I think is Lestat turning Gabrielle. And again, I'm like, these can only be, like, they can't have shot all this footage yet. They've not been going long enough. I don't know if this is like quick scenes for episode 1. Lestat in a strip club, some sort of vampire fight. It's kind of hard to tell if it's Lestat or Gabrielle. And then we get Gabrielle in full vampire mode, again with the awful Targaryen wig. And then a really horrible shot of like a despairing human Lestat, which I really hope isn't his turning by Magnus, but probably is. My favourite shot then, which is Lestat on the red carpet in his blush pink underbust corset. He's also wearing, in the behind the scenes footage, a little lovely little waist training corset for when he's playing the violin. It's a great shot. It's a great shot. And some of the fans that were there last night saw him filming that. And apparently his car, the license plate is Mojo, which is Lestat's dog. And then we get Gabrielle kissing a girl, because obviously Gabrielle's going to kiss a girl. I'd be disappointed if we didn't. And then it ends with a shot of poor, incredibly drugged up Lestat in a blood puke covered bathroom, because obviously we are doing a Rockstar documentary now, and then flicking his sort of blood sweat, I guess, Daniel's documentary camera. And that's it. But there's so much footage there because we've got kind of what looks like footage from all the key things, like him killing the wolves, fighting his brothers, turning Gabrielle, Gabriella as they're now going to call her, possibly his turning by Magnus. I was like, damn, that's like, that can't all be in episode one. It's crazy.
I guess there's a chance that because they knew, obviously they would have known in advance about the panel at Comic Con, and they kind of know that they're going to have to show something. People are going to expect to see something, that maybe they literally like took 2 or 3 days out of the shoot to literally just focus on creating a Comic Con sizzle reel. So they just kind of quickly shot little snippets of the series so that they could create the package. And maybe that's why it's not gone online yet, because it was footage that was kind of meant as a, for the scissor roll, as a little like lookbook of, hey, these are all the things that you can expect to see in this series, but not necessarily them cutting from bits and pieces that they had already filmed.
Yeah, they could have done that, or they could have, block booked certain scenes so that they would have the ability to pluck seconds out of it. Because I think they've been going for 22 days of 70 days. 22 nights. I mean, I don't know how they cope with that. That must be crazy. Um, but yeah, a lot of nights. But I mean, the footage, I mean, Gabrielle's wig is, yeah, not the best. And I think it's just, I think if she stays at that, they're going to be a lot of people quite disappointed at the decision not to lean into the more androgynous gender aspects of Gabrielle's character, I think. But as you said, this is a 2 minute 40 seconds reel. You can't judge anything on that basis. But all the rest of it looked really good. I like that we've got this calm, centered, at peace Louis living his best life. I like that we've got like silly scenes of them together. Although I love that Jacob said afterwards he had to go back to his trailer and have a minute, because I suppose he was so used to scenes where um, like Samri's declaring his undying love, and now all of a sudden they're bickering like they're in a divorce comedy. So that was very, very different from anything they've done before. So you had to have a minute. But it was great. It all looked really good. It was very well received. I agree it's not going to be online anytime soon, because I suspect they don't want it in HD or to be wedded to anything that they've shot. Lots of conversation starters in terms of Gabrielle's look, the whole reference to the train scene, um, the fun of whatever Lestat and Louis are doing with their lawyers. I do, if they are getting divorced, that would be hilarious because they've never got married. Um, and you know that they would get divorced and then instantly remarry like 24 hours later because they're that kind of a couple. Um, little shots of the threats still being there with the vampires in the crowd ready to attack Lestat. And yeah, I'm very excited. No, nothing of Armand yet. We know Assad Zaman is on set, but he's quite a big antagonist in the Vampire Lestat, obviously, particularly what he does to Nikki. So I'm sure he will have a very juicy role to play. Can't wait to see Delaney. I'm still surprised they didn't bring, I don't know how Comic Con works, but I was surprised they didn't just bring his band on stage with him, or at least Noah Reed, because he's got kind of a built-in fan base. I cannot wait to see who they cast as Akasha. Is it controversial to say I'm slightly surprised that all his band seems to be white?
Yeah, that's definitely been a point of contention, hasn't it, since the panel.
It's really difficult because, of course, the first series feels, even though it didn't have a great many black writers on the writing team, it felt much more, authentically African American because it was set in New Orleans and it was set within, that particular community. And then we moved to Paris. So, of course, we then got a bit of a mix up there. But now it is the vampire Lestat. You are focusing on the white lead. I mean, there's been an awful lot of discussion, and definitely racism does, no question, play a part when it comes to voters. But unfortunately, Interview's single biggest problem with any award body is that it's genre. Kat and I are horror fans. Kat is a hugely well-respected horror journalist, and you will know we could both spend the next hour talking about extraordinary, extraordinary horror performances that do not see the light of day, because people just don't care about them because they're genre. I mean, even the mainstream ones we could talk about, Lupita Nyong'o in Us, Toni Collette in Hereditary, the recent one, Paddington's mum, and Bring Her Back.
Sally Hawkins.
Sally Hawkins, not Sally Fields, Sally Hawkins. Yes, Sally Hawkins and Bring Her Back. Extraordinary performance. Is she going to get anything? Probably not. She might get something at the Gotham.
No.
She's not going to get anything else and I mean, she's doing a flawless Aussie accent, for Christ's sake. But people repeatedly ignore genre. I mean, if you look at the Emmy Awards, as expected, they have entirely focused on Severance. They have entirely focused on White Lotus. They tend to focus on HBO or Apple shows with very big, buzzy names. I mean, we love Pedro Pascal. Should Pedro Pascal be had nominated for a Best Actor Emmy when, spoiler alert, his character dies in the second episode of The Last of Us, because that's what happens in the game. I mean, it's nonsensical. It's nonsense. You cannot compare what Pedro did in Series 2 of The Last of Us with Jacob Anderson in Series 2 of Interview with the Vampire. The extraordinary, extraordinary work that he did, but, genre. And then we have obviously the other added element, which is it's gay as fuck. And unfortunately, viewers they just don't. I mean, I'm still surprised. I mean, I live for the day when I can, because I was going through trying to find the trades about some of the smaller, sorry, I shouldn't say that, some of the smaller roles, not smaller actors. There are another smaller actors. And I live for the day when I can type in Vampire Lestat and I don't have to see Brad Pitt's face. I live for that day. But that day is not coming any day soon. Like, most people haven't watched Interview with the Vampire. Most people are like, oh, I can't get it. And you're like, it's on iPlayer. It just doesn't have the following it should have because it's horror, it has a black lead, and it is, unabashedly queer. And people don't like that. So yeah, but I can understand that if you followed this because you felt very seen at it having a black lead, or you were very entranced obviously with seeing Delaney Hales and Bailey Bass on screen, this is now following the white guy because that's what the book does, and obviously he's French, so his backstory is not going to have a ton of people of color in it. And yeah, I'm just still, I know that they put out a general call, so it would have been whoever was Toronto based and was an extremely good musician. But I always saw Tough Cookie as black. I really did. I don't know why. Adam Rice doesn't describe it that way, but that was just my personal headcanon. There will be chaos, I suspect, if Akasha is anything other than black or Arab, or is she Egyptian? I think she's Egyptian in the books.
She's Egyptian, yeah.
So, I mean, if we get a white Akasha, oh my God. I can't imagine they do that, but I don't think they were. I mean, and to be fair, we only associate Akasha with that ethnicity because of Aaliyah. She is Egyptian in the book. So, people from that region could be similarly saying, why have you co-opted our character? But we certainly can't have a white Akasha. That would be chaos. And there was some discussion about whether they've literally brought Delaney in to be Akasha. I don't see it. I mean, I'm not saying she would. I think she'd be phenomenal as Akasha, but I think you need someone else. I think it would be confusing.
Yeah, I think the whole thing with Akasha was we have somebody, but we are still finalizing their contract, so we're not going to say anything just yet. And I feel that, I mean, they announced that Delaney is coming back, so why then be coy about who she's playing? Like, if you're bringing Delaney back specifically to now play Akasha, surely they would have announced it. Well, they would have either announced it or they would have just kept Delaney's name completely out of it to me, rather than this whole we have this mystery person, but their contract isn't signed yet.
Yeah, I agree because I feel like if she was going to be Akasha, they would have just um, not announced it and then had her appear in universe as Akasha. Jacob Anderson mouthed she's good when they were talking about Akasha on the panel. So I was like, it's Jacob's seal of approval. That's good. I mean, Jacob seems like a puppy dog who would agree with it. It would be like kind to everybody. But I was like, great. I'm glad that we have Jacob's seal of approval on that one. But yeah, lots to come. All very exciting. Looks like it's going to be broadcast in April next year, which apparently Jacob let slip on one of the panels. So still a very, very long time away, but all really exciting. Hopefully there will be much more this time around in terms of advertising, which I suspect is going to upset people as well. But it's because the vampire rock star is just such an easy concept to do promotions around.
I feel we should also mention the collaboration that was announced at the panel, which was there was several guitars on the stage, and they were Fender guitars, and so Fender are releasing some Lestat guitars, which is quite cool. So they had the Lestat collection, Lestat Petit on display at the panel, which was really exciting. But yeah, I think in terms of marketing and collaborations and stuff, there's just a lot more opportunity here. I mean, I used to work in distribution, and I'd be in regular meetings with marketing teams, and they're always looking for that easy hookup. And we've already got guitars because he has a band, he is a he's a rock star. We have spoken before about makeup artists on the show sharing what color palettes they're using for Lestat's makeup. That's an easy collaboration. Let's get some makeup out there. He is a rock star, he's going to have a load of different costumes. Let's get the Lestat Killstar collab out there. There's so much that you can do with this material. I mean, you kind of look back at the first two seasons, and there's not really those same easy marriages. I mean, what are you going to use to cross promote the first two seasons? Like, you're going to work with a strip club, it's a tech bro. There's an art dealer. Like, they're not sort of those easy collaborations that you can sell. A rock star vampire, you can sell.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I will be very furious if we don't get an Urban Decay makeup collaboration, or if one of the other makeup brands doesn't do the Vampire Lestat collaboration. As you said, we've got the Lestat guitar, which is hilarious with Fender. Fender there were guitar picks with the VL logo on at the press after party. And yeah, I mean, other than maybe collaborating with the city of New Orleans or doing, I don't know, like a wine, it would have been, I mean, the official stuff's not always that great. The official merch isn't great. They launched an official jewelry line at SDCC, also not great. All the fan merch is just so much better and so much stronger. I can definitely understand that people are like, oh no, now the white guy's in the lead. Now they're doing something. But you're right. It's just laziness. It's easy because you can put a guitar in his hands that's from a company. You can put makeup on him that's from a company, and you can sell that collaboration. You can do his costume range. You can do a range of his microphones. You can do everything. Like Lestat, Rockstar Lestat is easy. Like whatever they're putting on his rider, you can, if he wants a goblet of wine or whatever, you can pair with a wine company. A Rockstar Vampire is the easiest thing in the world to market. I am hoping that they do a bit better when it comes nearer this time with like interviews. Like last time they kind of subcontracted it all to Autumn Brown. She seems like a very, very lovely, sweet person, but I would kind of like actually, them to kind of go out and do sort of long form interviews themselves internally this time around. Get the lady from Rotten Tomatoes. She was amazing. You need somebody, I think, that knows them really well and has really good rapport and can kind of touch on the race aspects of it as well. I think. I mean, they had it's a fellow Naomi who did the podcast. She was great. Let's bring her back. The official podcast. But I'm kind of hoping that they rev it up a little bit and do it in house with a really strong interviewer. Because it deserves that love.
I would like Rolling Stone or like NME or any other music magazine to interview Sam and the band as Lestat and the band. I think doing something like that would be like a really kind of cool way to get the show out there to people that maybe haven't necessarily heard of it before.
Anne Rice did this all the time. She did so many Facebook posts as Lestat. So yeah, I want the Vanity Fair whatever questions with Lestat, and I get it. People are going to be really upset that what about Louis? But what I would love is if we also did interviews with Jacob as Louis, as like who's the vampire Lestat's like ex-lover kind of thing. I think that would be hilarious. And then obviously really long form interviews properly in house with themselves with a great interviewer. I think that would be good because it always feels like this is kind of the little show that could. And sometimes you're like, guys, you've got like a really cool show here. Why don't we, why have you gotten rid of the woman who did the really good podcast with them? And you can tell how relaxed, you can always tell how relaxed they are by how many times Sam laughs. Like if you've got Sam laughing really like heavily in the first 5 minutes, you're doing well. So like I think AMC cheaped out a tiny bit for the series 2 promo. So I'm hoping that this time they go big and give Jacob and Delaney and Assad equal promotion. Because that was definitely a thing in series 2. They didn't push Assad and Delaney anywhere near as much as they should have. I'm still really surprised that we didn't get, a joint interview with Jacob and Assad, and we didn't get. There wasn't really many questions to Assad about, playing a romantic lead as a South Asian, which is, something that's still in Western media doesn't happen all that often, or about kind of the dynamics of South Asian Black relationship, which is also very rarely depicted on screen. So there was kind of lots that could be discussed and that weren't, and Delaney especially, I think, got slightly short shrift. Assad was left out of pretty much every single write-up in the British press, to the point where it had to be like, are you just afraid of mentioning a name in case you think it sounds too Muslim for people? It was that kind of thing. So I really hope that all the cast gets their flowers this time around. Jacob especially, because obviously we're going to get lots of things with Sam, but Sam is best with Jacob by his side. So we want lots of joint interviews, lots of focus on Assad, lots of focus on Delaney, and then obviously whoever they cast as Akasha. And I mean Jennifer as well. But yeah, I want it to be a little bit more balanced this time around. I mean, at least, Assad and Delaney got their flowers with Autumn, who gave them like really good long interviews because they were pretty much the only outlet that did.
And should AMC be listening, we are always here. Our door is always open. Anybody and everybody involved in the show in any way, shape, or form, we would love to chat. You give us groupie number 5 from episode 3, we will talk to groupie number 5 from episode 3. Anything that we can do to help champion this show and get it out to a wider audience, we are totally here for that.
Yeah, we're very relaxed. So yeah, you want to talk, you want to put like vampire in the crowd, we'll chat to them. We're happy. We have a very relaxed team. We don't need the big guys, but we'll take them.
And yeah, whilst it might not be until April next year that we're getting the Vampire Lestat, we will be back again soon for series 2. I'm thinking October's kind of the right time to talk about vampires again.
Yes, that sounds good. We'll start recording soon, and then we'll start getting us backing in October. The first episode is interesting because it's kind of my least favorite, but also has two of my favorite scenes in the entire series in it. I felt like we could talk for approximately an hour about how exceptional Jacob Anderson is in the first episode of series 2, and then building all our way through to the trial. Be prepared for me to be very angry about how shit Louis is at power dynamics and office politics, because I can't help but feel that series 2 might have gone slightly differently if Louis had been a little bit better at handling Armand. And equally talk about how that bitch Armand just didn't want to be a fucking stepfather.
Yeah, so we will be back soon with series 2. Obviously, if if Akasha casting news drops, we will hop onto one of these little bonus episodes and bring you our thoughts and feelings about that. But, until then, we will beaver away and work on series 2 and, finally work up the courage to talk about the trial and Paris and the Theatre de Vampire. But in the meantime, you can follow us across various social media platforms. There are links in the show notes. Also, let us know what you think of everything that we've just shared that we learned from the San Diego Comic-Con panel. How are you feeling? Do we like the casting? What do we feel about the name change? You can find our email also in the show notes. So yeah, drop us an email, and maybe if we get enough of you guys, we will be back with a little postbox episode as we go through everybody's reactions. And so yes, thank you as always for listening to us dissect every minute detail of the Anne Rice Immortal Universe. Please do give us a like, rating, and follow wherever you are listening to us, and we will see you in October, if not sooner.